So, welcome everybody to our second episode of the Finding Meitheal um, podcast. Meitheal being an Irish word that means community and connection. And the idea of this podcast really is about myself and Ray Power finding that community in Ireland that we know that exists. And as part of our podcast, we thought a fun, joyful way to find out about each person is to ask them six questions. So we thought it would be good today to find out Ray's answers to those six questions and what finding Mihal means to him. So I welcome Ray. Lovely to see you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Um, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Up early as always.
Good
As
man.
always. Yeah,
Good to hear. It's always good to start the day early. Get the best
absolutely.
out of it. So yeah, if you're happy, Ray, we'll fire away with the questions. So that first
Please.
question is, can you think of a funny childhood memory?
Oh wow, I have a million of them. One that stands out to mind. I was only talking to a good friend of mine yesterday. He's the same age as me, 48. Many years ago, back in the 80s, I remember his mum and his dad. His dad used to play traditional Irish music, so he would have had to travel a lot in the 80s for work. That was a normal thing to do in Ireland back then. And
Yeah,
while that was going on, he would have stayed in my house. Um, he would have stayed in my house for weeks and weeks on ends. And I remember my mother saying to us one day, I tell you, I'd need two chickens in this house to keep you going with eggs because we loved our eggs in the morning. Um, so I got a brainwave. There was a farm just not too far from us. And my mother was going off shopping that day. And I said I'd surprise her. So myself and my friend, we went in and let's say we borrowed two chickens. Um, So we ran in around the farm and we were running after the chickens. And I got one, he got one. We brought it back to the house. And then we went back down and took a little bit of straw and a little bit of timber. And we made a lovely little chicken coop out in my garden. And lo and behold, my mum came home that evening. I said, Mum, I have a surprise for you. She said, What? I said, I got two chickens. She said, Sorry, I got two chickens. I opened the back door. And let's say she went through the roof and asked where we got them. And the easiest part was stealing the chickens, but trying to unsteal them was the hardest part. We had to bring back the chickens. And I had a sore behind with the slaps my mom gave me for taking the chickens. But it was just, I remember, it was just a phrase of words that she was using. I'd need two chickens. I thought I was helping my mother by getting her two, but unfortunately, no, it ended up with a bruised ass and a load of shouting and roaring. I got grounded and I had to unsteal the chickens and bring them back. That was the hardest part.
my one word response to that is hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love
It
that.
was funny. It was
Oh,
funny.
brilliant.
Innocent. Innocence.
Innocence. Innocence is another great word. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so, second one, Ray, have you got a quote that inspires you?
Yes, I do. I'd like to read it out for you if that's okay.
Please do.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. Forgive yourself for not knowing early what only time could teach. Because the truth is, we can only understand certain things after we grow, after we go through life, and after time quietly teaches us what we once didn't know. Um, that resonates an awful lot with me. When I was going through my hard times with addiction, mental health, and um, when I left prison, I left the authentic version of Ray, let's say. My addiction was gone, my mental health was gone, and I was sitting with a lot of feelings and a lot of regret. And I had to do a lot of work with that. It is amazing sometimes when you're going through addiction how it actually numbs how you feel. And when I left prison, it all came flooding back. The hurt that I caused people, the hurt I caused myself, the missed years, the almost 10 years of my life lost to addiction and mental health. And I had to do an awful lot of work on that. And the one thing I remember a woman saying to me, said, Ray, you have to forgive yourself for stuff, that you did. And I found that very difficult at start, but over time, I started forgiving myself, and that's where I was set free from that then.
Mm.
And that's where the magic started to happen. I don't look back on my life now with regret. I look back at my life now as someone who was trying to live through chaos, and I came out the other side. So I'm very, very grateful for that. But forgiving ourselves as well is a very important thing.
Mm. Yeah, my one word response to that, Ray, is peace.
Peace, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank you.
that. So actually, you've already answered, but the next question was, what does forgiveness mean to you?
Yeah, forgiveness, it means everything because it's the foundation of, I suppose moving on, forgiving people that hurt me. I've forgiven myself. Forgiveness is a huge thing, because I found very later on in life, even going through recovery, there's a lot of things happen. And when you forgive that person, you set yourself free. I always love the quote. Sometimes you forgive someone not because they deserve it, but because you deserve the peace.
Mm.
That's something I always say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Beautiful. That's my response. Beautiful.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Charlie.
yeah. Um, what are you grateful for right now?
I'm grateful for, that's a good question because a couple of weeks ago I was starting to get caught up in that. I'm not employed. I'm finding it difficult to find a job with a criminal conviction. And the other day, this kind of dawned on me. I was driving um, home in my car, and I said, just flashed in my mind, Ray, I have a car. I'm driving home to my house. I'm going home to get some food. I'm going to have some dinner. I have a warm bed. I have everything, and
Mm,
that just dawned on me there. I have all the luxuries, even though I'm not working, I'm not employed, but I have things that so many people don't have. Um, do I have loads of money to live a different life? No, but I'm happy with this life. And I was glad that thought came to me at that moment because I was starting to get caught up and I'm not working. And I think for me, it's not financially, it's just something to be doing physically. But I'm grateful for the opportunity I have. I have love in my life. I have a partner that loves me. I love them back. I have kids. I have a home. Um, and maybe that's all we need.
mm.
Mm.
Yeah, the word that's coming to mind is acceptance.
Acceptance. Yeah, acceptance.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, lovely.
Thank you.
Next question is, what does radical curiosity mean to you?
Uh, that's a difficult one. Uh, I was reading that. I actually don't have to answer that one.
That's okay. That's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, you don't have to. You don't. It's not mastermind. It's not
yeah,
mastermind. So
yeah,
it's good to take questions sometimes just to explore them
yeah,
and think about them and how it maybe curiosity is a good thing in of itself, like this exploration. So yeah, that's it's not knowing an answer is great as well because, like I say, it means you can just have some time afterwards just to reflect and think
yeah,
about it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so, so the other question is, what would you like your legacy to be when you die?
Hmm. I'd like to be remembered for the man I am now and not the person I used to be. Do you know, a lot of that I'm doing, sometimes I'd be reminded from my past, trying to navigate life with a criminal conviction. I've done an awful lot of amazing things in the last 7 years of my life that, please God, when I get to 80 or 90 years of age, I can look back at this part of my life and the 7 years previous, and I'll be very, very, very proud of all the beautiful things I've accomplished in life, going into prisons, talking to people, helping and supporting people with mental health and addiction. I would like to be remembered for someone that didn't have a great life, made mistakes, but turned it around. And I'd like to be a shining example for anyone that might be struggling in life.
Mm.
I'd like to be remembered for that.
So the word that's coming through is pride.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's lovely. Thanks for that, Ray.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Charlie. Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
so the other one that is more a sort of general thing that we came up with this term of finding Meitheal. Don't even know if I pronounced it right, but it doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
that Irish word of community and things. So I kind of wondered how did that speaks to you? What that how that feels? What that sense of finding Meitheal means? Or yeah,
Yeah. Well, it kind of every time I hear me Hall, I think of my father because my father is Michael. You know, when hear the name me Hall, it brings me straight back. I suppose that I picture my dad's face, and um, yeah, you know, um, in that when I hear it, I wish that I had, I suppose, a proper um relationship, I suppose, with my father. You know, one that I could be proud of and he could be proud of. Um, yeah, that's what it kind of reminds me of every time I hear it. It was a bit ironic when you told me about what you were going to be calling the podcast. And I think there's little hidden messages in everything we do in recovery sometimes. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's a very I suppose a personal name, and I love my father. Did he get things right in life? No, he didn't. I'm a father too, but did I get things right in life? No, I didn't. But that's what it reminds me of.
And because I want to discover more Irish words, but the one that I do know is graw. So it feels real graw with your dad that in what you
Yeah,
were sharing there. So I think that's really lovely. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Very, very. Kind of, I suppose love and angry, disappointment, and love springs to mind. When it comes to my dad. And as I said, look, we're all parents, and there's no book to life saying this is how you do it. We learn by our mistakes, and you know, um, yeah, it just brings me back to my dad. But we're in a good place. Are we closer than I like? No, but whatever it is at the moment, I accepted that because it's still good. You know,
yeah, lovely. Yeah.
yeah,
So thanks, Ray, for answering
no
those
problem,
questions.
no problem.
Um, just going to leave a pause, and then I thought if we got time, if you're happy to, if there's a story that comes to mind from the prison stories, that we could
Yeah,
start doing one of those. So if I do a gap between, I'll see how this kind of works. But um, so I'll go again into the introduction, and we'll see if that,
okay.
hopefully, that can work in terms of the editing. If not, we'll go with what fair. But I can always cut this to a certain point.
Yeah,
Um, so welcome to another edition of the Finding Meitheal podcast. Something that we thought we'd try out is because there's very often so many negative stories about people in prisons, and we wanted to share that actually the humanity of people that are in prison. So Ray has kindly agreed to share some stories. So I thought we could even we'd start now with Ray. If there's a story that you'd also why you felt it's important to share those stories, and if it's anything you'd like to share around that, and the story
yeah.
that comes to
Uh,
mind.
you know, Charlie. just for the viewers, I suppose, just tell them a little bit about myself. I went into prison at the age of 43 for the first time in my life. Uh, did an 18-month sentence while I was going through my addiction and mental health. And I suppose prior to me going to prison, I would have always had this notion as well, that prison is not a nice place. And it's not a nice place. And it's full of people that are bad. And when I entered into the prison system, immediately the first thing that struck me was the guys that were in there, how they supported it and helped me on my little journey in there. My little journey first going into prison was that I became very, very ill in prison, obviously, because I wasn't able to get my hands on the drugs that I would have been taking on the outside. So I went into a detox and I ended up being very, very sick in the prison. I suppose for my first 3 months into my 18-month sentence, I had to be taken out as well to the hospital twice. And I had, I suppose, a catheter, a urine bag, and I was confined to the bed when I went back to the prison, um, sweating, hallucinating. And I remember the guys within the prison on my landing. Never met these guys before. There was no familiar faces around me. Mostly Dublin orientated guys came in and checked on me, asked me, was I okay? Did I need anything? Brought me water, brought me biscuits, brought me fresh clothes. Because when you go into prison, you have to wait for your clothes to come in. And all I had was the grey prison tracksuit. And because I was over sweating, that was wet and I needed a change of clothes. And they brought me in tracksuit ends, underwear, socks. There was even one guy, a lifer in there. He worked in the laundry. It was his world. And he used to come in and take all my clothes that I had from excessive sweating and bring them down and wash them in the laundry and bring them back to me that evening. And I'll never forget the care and attention that I got within the place. It was incredible, these guys coming in checking on me. And bear in mind, no one else did. The Irish prison it was around the time when COVID was going on, so there was very, very little contact. The only contact we had was the men that we were confined to on the cell.
Yeah.
So I had very, very little doctors or nurses or medics checking on me. I had prisoners, and that guy, the lifer that was working in the laundry, I ended up becoming very, very good friends with him, and he was very, very good to me in the prison, helping me, support me, showing me the ways, got me a job in the laundry when I started feeling better. And it was an experience I'll never forget. Like these guys cared.
Yeah. Yeah.
They really cared, and I was blown away by it. I nearly get emotional when I think about it. There was a lot of times when I was out on the streets before I went to prison, and people used to walk away from me, run away from me. They were scared, and no one really put out the hand. And I entered into prison, and there was guys that put out the hand and helped me and supported me. It was astonishing. I suppose for me, leaving prison now, and I do a lot of work talking about prisoners, talking about how they're trying to rebuild their life, to support them, ease the guard of vetting so they can get jobs. I talk a lot about that. And when I do that for the guys that helped and supported me through my journey because they deserved it. They deserve it. Um, I can honestly say prison is not full of bad people. There's good and bad everywhere.
Mm.
I only saw love, care, and attention and support.
Mm.
Yeah,
Wow. Thanks for
yeah,
sharing that, Ray.
yeah. Um, it was probably one of the most loving things I've ever seen in my life. In a prison setting. Um, I will never forget it.
Mm.
You know, I will never forget it. Um, I remember the day leaving the prison, and the guy that my friend that was doing life, he said to me, "Walk out that door and don't look back. When you walk out the gate, don't look back. Just keep walking and don't ever come back here again." um, because he said, "Ray, you don't belong here."
Mm.
No, no, amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I suppose that's important for people to hear, because I was one of those people. I thought prison was full of bad people. Um, I always speak the truth. I've seen it with my own eyes, and that was my time in prison, where I was met with support from my fellow inmates.
Mm.
And, I've no bad stories to report where I was hurt or stuff said bad to me or nothing. I never saw that. I think that kind of stuff is for Hollywood movies. You know, um, but yeah, I thank them for that support because um, I needed it.
Mm.
I was alone. I was scared. I was I needed that support, and they done a lot for me without them ever knowing. Um, and that's why I'll always speak up for those that are in prison that are didn't get it, didn't get the first chance in life. Our prisons are full of people that didn't get a chance in life and had a life that they didn't ask for. I remember speaking to some of the guys in the prison, going into their cell, having a cup of coffee, and they opening up and sharing their life to me. And we talk about second chances, but sometimes these people didn't even get the first chance in life. And they
Mm.
weren't in prison because they were bad people. They were in prison because they just got a life they didn't ask for. And a lot of them fed their emotions and hid things in their life with addiction, which later went on to them making bad choices out of confusion and not knowing any different,
Mm.
and ended up inside prison. Some made mistakes. 1 second mistake ruined their life and ended up in prison for a long time. Um, I've seen a lot of regret in there. I've seen a lot of guys that were sorry for what they did. I've spoke to them. Um, and even today, I still have people reaching out to me that I was on the land and lads that got out. I put out stuff on social media and I talk about prisoners and how life is difficult after prison. And every one of them always come back and say, "Thanks, Ray," or, they put a comment, and they, they're huge support. So it wasn't just in the prison, it's trickling out onto,
Mm.
when we got free. Um, yeah, when I talk about that time of my prison, um, it can raise an awful lot of emotion because I suppose for the first time in my life in a prison setting, I found what it was like to have friends, someone who cared for you,
Mm.
someone that really cared for you and hoped that you were doing okay, and also knew what you were going through,
Mm.
understood that pain of
Mm.
addiction, mental health, and detox. They
Mm.
understood it. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I think I think having a living experience of it, I heard it was Brené Brown and she was talking about empathy, that empathy isn't just walking in someone else's shoes, it's someone else telling you what it feels like to walk in their own shoes.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's I think it's the gift that you do. I think the work that you do, the people that you've supported along the way, that you've been encouraging and a huge respect for you for for you going back into the prisons and the work that you did in the women's prisons and the journey that you're on now. That it's you've been through a lot within that, but you've still the courage to keep going, the courage to keep stepping into that and to keep connecting with. And what's great about the fact of both of us is that we both have that lived experience of prison. And I've shared this poem, but maybe I'll share it now. We've got about 6 minutes left on this. But so the poem I've shared with you before that I think captures what prison really is about. Because very often we focus on the individual, we don't focus on the actual process of what prison does. And so this poem is called Prisoners. We want them to have self-worth, so we destroy their self-worth. To be responsible, so we take away responsibility. To be positive and constructive, so we degrade them and make them useless. To be non-violent, so we put them where there's violence all around. To stop bullying, so we put them where the bully is respected. We want them to be independent, own their own problems, and quit being parasites. So we make them totally dependent on us. That was written by Judge Dennis Shilleen, Supreme Court USA. So I think it's quite important that we also look at what the structures of what prison is actually doing to people.
Mm, absolutely.
And I think that that poem, I know for me, it captured my experience around that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, just it's it's that sense, and I feel like the great work that you do is like the opposite to that. When you take people out on walks up into the mountains, into spaces of swimming, breath work, meditation, these are all the things that are about healing.
Mhm.
And I think that those are the things that we need more of and need more connection and more in-person connection and more kindness. And we do need more forgiveness. We need more forgiveness of, first of all, for people to even understand. Most people have no idea what forgiveness even means.
Yeah.
You say to them, what does forgiveness mean? They'll either get angry about it or, I've heard responses of some people who be like, oh, it's not for me to forgive, it's for that person. Or, I don't forgive. That's not the way that it works. And it's like, well, ultimately, forgiveness is peace.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is giving up all hope of a better past. Forgiveness is making peace with someone or something I can't control, and that can
Hmm.
include yourself. So, I'm delighted that you were speaking about the way you have articulated around forgiveness, because I just feel again that's another major piece of work that needs to be done with people that are in prisons, and I think we need to become forgiveness informed.
Yeah.
I'm very much agree in the sense of us being trauma informed, but I don't hear many people saying about being forgiveness informed
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a good point, Charlie. It's a good point.
because it ties in with the fact of, if both of us will have experienced discrimination around jobs for having prison records. As soon
Yeah.
as you disclose it, the legally, like we had what's called the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act. And in that, you disclose, and then every time you write down what it is, you never get the opportunity to explain, to talk about various different things. And so there's an unforgiveness that happens in the hearts of those people who work in HR and in society. You must have had a lot of vitriol when you've posted things and you've had the courage to step up. And people
Mm.
write in their comments and things very often because they're angry themselves. It's nothing to do with prison things. Very often, I feel when people are on responding to things, they're hurting, but it's not the hurt that's about that thing. It's just they've had an
Yeah.
excuse to hurt on that. And I see so much of it in the world now, people hurting so much that if they really looked at it, they would be self-reflecting and working on that hurt. But sadly, they don't.
Yeah, it's very true.
So I
You
think
know,
it,
we're all just trying to live, and we all carry hurt in our life, and we all would just want to feel like we belong. Everyone on this planet wants to feel like they belong.
yeah,
And when you remove that feeling from, I suppose, people that have been through the prison system, and we'll take away that, they've paid their debt to society, but we're going to take away their feeling of belonging. That's a very, very difficult place to be in life.
yeah,
And, you know, for me, leaving prison was harder than going into prison because now I'm trying to navigate a life with a criminal conviction. And I'm hoping that someone who picks up my CV will have empathy. And that's all it takes,
yeah,
and compassion,
yeah,
that they'll go, do you know what? I see this guy for all the amazing work he did, not by one moment in his life. Let's give him a chance. And that's all it takes. Give
yeah,
a person a chance, but we cannot remove their feeling of belonging because
mm,
we all want to belong,
absolutely.
and then, you go into work, into the thing, and you have HR, and HR's process is, I'll manage you out of the company. That's what they're professionally trained to do.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
we need a human side to that too, as well, to remember, okay, I'm going to face this, and I might have to let someone go. How would I feel in this situation?
yeah,
Let's see, can we fix it before it gets to crisis point?
yeah. So
You
we're
know?
we're just on to less than a minute. So this is going to end now, but we are going to
Yeah.
be doing more of these. So this is just like for now. It's kind of like this is we just want. I wanted to get in. So thank you so much, Ray, for all
Thank you,
that
Charlie.
you've been sharing, for answering the questions, for the Finding Meitheal. And yeah, this we're just getting going on this, guys. So if you like it, give it a share, write a comment, write down what your answer the questions in on this.